bite-sized lessons, one break at a time. I'm Pete.
And I'm Drew. Pete, let me set the scene for today. A site takes delivery of a fleet of brand new excavators, top spec machines, big capital investment. Leadership is excited and the production team is ready to hit their numbers.
Sounds like a win.
On paper, absolutely. But here's what actually happens. Day one, the operators climb in and they're not familiar with the controls. The training hasn't happened yet. The CMMS has no master data loaded, so maintenance can't plan the first service. The spare parts for the initial scheduled maintenance aren't on site because nobody confirmed lead times. And the procedure for the first service? It's a copy of the OEM manual. That references a configuration the site didn't order.
And suddenly, that shiny new fleet isn't producing anywhere near what the business expected.
For months, in some cases much longer. And here's the thing, none of those problems showed up on the day the machines arrived. They were all created weeks, months, and some cases years earlier by the work that didn't happen before the equipment got there.
And that is exactly what today's episode is about. Operational readiness. What it actually is, why it matters, and what it costs when it's missing. There is so much to unpack here. So today, we're starting at the foundation.
And it's a topic that doesn't get nearly enough airtime because most of the conversation is often about maintaining assets once they're running. Operational readiness is about everything that has to happen before the equipment is turned on.
So let's define it. Operational readiness is the process of ensuring that your people, your systems, and your equipment are all prepared and aligned before an asset, fixed, mobile, or otherwise, enters service. It's the work before the work.
And the reason it matters sits squarely in the PCR triad. When operational readiness is done well, you hit your performance targets from day one. Your costs are controlled from the start, and your operational risk is managed before it has a chance to materialise. When it's not done well, you pay for it on all three fronts simultaneously.
And what does that actually look like? Think about two lines on a chart. The first is your expected production, steady ramp up, hitting nameplate capacity on schedule. The second is your actual performance. The gap between those two lines is called the erosion of business value. For primary producing assets, that gap can run into the tens of millions of dollars. And every week it exists, the business is losing money it will never recover.
That's the part that gets me, Pete, because it's rarely caused by a bad machine. It's caused by a site that wasn't prepared to receive it, operate it, and maintain it from day one. The asset was ready, the organisation wasn't.
So let's get into the three lenses of operational readiness, because this is the framework. People, systems, and equipment, and each one has to be addressed. You can't fix a people problem with better equipment. You can't sustainably compensate for missing systems with a well-trained workforce. They work together or the whole thing underperforms.
Start with people. This is often the most underestimated lens. Before that fleet arrives, you need to know exactly who is going to operate it, who is going to maintain it, how many of each, and whether they have the skills to do the job on day one. Not day 90, day one.
And it goes deeper than headcount. You need an operating philosophy. How are these machines going to be run? What are the limits? What does good operating discipline look like? Then you need the training to back it up, both the operators and the maintenance team. Because a skilled fitter who has never worked on this asset is still a risk in the early weeks, if they haven't been prepared.
The second lens is systems. This is the infrastructure that surrounds the asset, the processes, the data, the procedures, the CMMS readiness. And this is where sites consistently fall short because it's invisible. Nobody photographs the CMMS master data load at a project launch.
Nobody puts it in the press release.
Exactly. But if that master data isn't ready, functional locations, maintenance plans, bill of materials, spare parts catalogue, then from day one, your maintenance team is working blind. They can't plan, they can't schedule, they can't order parts with confidence. And what happens when you can't plan? You react. And reactive maintenance is always more expensive than planned maintenance.
And the procedures have to exist before the work starts, not be written up after the first breakdown. Standard work procedures, emergency egress plans, fueling and lubrication protocols. If the documentation isn't ready, you are relying on tribal knowledge from day one. That's your risk walking in through the front gate.
The third lens is equipment. And this isn't just, did the right machine show up? It's deeper than that. Is the machine configured correctly for your operating environment? Are all the options documented so they can be maintained? Is the maintenance strategy built around the machine you actually received, not a generic version of it?
And this is where I want to land on something important. When it comes to building a maintenance strategy for a new asset, the work you can do before the equipment arrives can get you roughly 80% of the way there. You're working from drawings, manuals, OEM documentation, and experience with similar assets. That foundation is critical and it has to be done.
But the final 20% you cannot complete from a desk.
You cannot. That last 20% only exists once you are standing next to it. You need to verify the configuration and layout. You need to confirm the access points, the service locations, the real-world conditions that affect how well a maintenance document reads and flows. And critically, you need to work through that strategy with the people who are actually going to execute it.
Because a maintenance strategy built without the input of the people who will execute it is a strategy that gets worked around, not followed. The tradespeople and supervisors who live with that equipment every day have knowledge no manual contains. If you don't engage them in the final stage, you lose that knowledge and you lose their ownership of it.
That's the part of operational readiness that can't be shortcutted. You can automate a lot of the documentation work. You can build templates, preload data, prepare procedures in advance. But the final handshake between the strategy on paper and the reality of the equipment in the field, that requires human presence and collaboration.
And when that handshake happens well, the gap closes. The performance line tracks closer to the expected line. The costs don't blow out in those first critical months. And the risk, the safety risk, the reliability risk, the financial risk is managed before it becomes a problem you're reacting to.
Which is the whole point. Operational readiness isn't a project management checkbox. It's the difference between equipment that performs from day one and one that spends its first year recovering from a start it was never properly prepared for.
All right, Pete, let's bring it home. Break tip time.
Here's the break tip for this week. If you have a new asset coming to your site in the next 6 to 12 months, do this tomorrow morning. Sit down and ask 3 questions. 1. Do we have a plan to have people ready to operate and maintain this equipment on day 1? 2. Is there a plan to have master data loaded in the CMMS, and are the maintenance procedures written? 3. Has someone physically verified the maintenance strategy against the actual machine configuration? If the answer to any of those is no, or we'll sort it out when it arrives, you have identified your readiness gap. Start closing it now, not when the asset is on the deck.
Because by the time it's on the deck, the clock is already running. Now, if you don't have a new asset incoming, pull the last edition your site made and ask whether those 3 questions were answered before it arrived. The gap you find tells you exactly what to fix next time.
In the next episode of this series, we're going into the people lens in detail. What operational readiness looks like from an organisational and training perspective, and what it costs when the human side of readiness is treated as an afterthought. If you found this one useful, Subscribe so you don't miss it. Until next time, take care.